Hi there, in this video I'm going to be revisiting one of the images from my archive to show you the steps that I use to process it in Lightroom. This is an image taken on Ireland's Copper Coast in January of this year. I'm going to take it from this to this. And if you'd like to find out how I did it, then stick around because I'm going to talk you through all the steps involved. I've deliberately underexposed the main part of the image so that the sun is not blown out, that there is detail in it. And we'll just use the camera's dynamic range to pull back the detail. The first thing that I'm going to do is to change the color profile. It's currently on Adobe Color, but I'm going to go for Adobe Landscape. And when I release the mouse, you'll see it allows the shadows to open up a little bit more. And from here then I'm going to further brighten the shadows by just dragging the shadows slider, and I'll bring up the whites to bring up the sky. And next I think what I'll do is I'm going to grab a linear gradient and drag it up. So I'll hit the shift button on the keyboard to make sure that it's straight. And I'm going to lift the shadows again with that and maybe bring up the exposure in the foreground. So we're starting to reveal the scene. The next thing that I might do is go back into the basic adjustments, and I might take the color temperature up a little bit just to add to that golden glow in the sky. And next I'm going to go back in and add another linear gradient into the sky, into the top this time, and drag down a fairly wide one, fairly widely feathered one. Let me just bring it up a little bit here just so that the end of the effect is just tipping the top of the rock. And I'm going to take the exposure down a little bit, but bring up the whites just to again reveal the sky a little bit. Maybe take the shadows up a little bit as well. Right. Now, if we go back out of there, I'm just scanning my eyes around the image as I'm looking at it, and there's a lot of dead foreground, I think, at the bottom of the image. So I'm going to go for a crop, and a 16:9 I think would probably be the best. And we keep the sky as much as possible, and maybe drag in from the bottom left corner just to center the rocks a little bit more, and click back out of that. I think that's a more pleasing to the eye effect. Now let's take a little bit of a look at the color. So we'll collapse down the basic panel, and I'm going to go into the HSL color, and in the saturation section, if we bring up the orange, and there's quite a bit of, I think, maybe a purple or magenta in the sky, so let's see if we can bring that up a little bit more, maybe in the luminance as well. And we'll collapse that down again, and I'm going to go back into the basic panel, maybe increase the contrast a little, bring the exposure up a little bit more. I'm just conscious of not burning out the sun, but I can always tone that down afterwards. Okay, I like where that's going now. We might bring up the vibrance, and rather than doing the saturation here, if we go down to the calibration panel, in fact I've already done it a little bit. I put this in as a preset normally before I load images. If we drag the saturation up here in the blue, you can see it really lifts the image, but it doesn't get oversaturated like it would be if I use a normal saturation slider. So I'm liking the effect that that's given, and I think I might just go back in and just use a small radial gradient just to tone down the real brightness in the sun there. And finally, possibly another radial gradient coming out from the center. And I'm going to increase the feathering on it. I'm going to invert it and just drag the exposure down to create a little bit of a vignette. Back to our main basic panel. And let's see. Let me bring the whites up a bit more now. Oh, that's a little too much. That there. Okay, I'm going to go back again to my sun adjustment. Drag the highlights down a little bit. Maybe bring the blacks down. No, that doesn't work. We'll take that out. Okay. The other thing I might do is just stretch this out a little and keep it more localized on the sun. And then that stretching at this area here. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. That's just feathering the effect a little bit. Okay, and I think maybe I might just tighten up the crop a little more, just get rid of a little more of that foreground. And that's it. I think that image is done. Now, I'm still not happy with that radial gradient around the area of the sun. I think it's made it too contrasty, so I'll maybe just take the contrast down a little bit. There we go. Now, I think that image is pretty much done. So if you liked this and you found it useful or entertaining or informative, please do give the channel a subscribe, and it'll make it possible to keep producing more videos. Until the next time, bye.